Hello, and welcome back to Stamps Old World UK. Today's video dives deep into the fascinating world of stamps, uncovering how to judge their market value today in US dollars, how you can spot rare gems like the stamp you sent, and tips for anyone who wants to turn their passion into profit. Whether you're a seasoned philatelist or just discovering the magic of stamps, sit back and let's explore this journey together. When I first saw the image you sent, a green halfpenny stamp from the UK, I knew instantly it deserved attention. It appears to be one of the King George V halfpenny definitives, likely issued in the early 20th century. The half-D green stamps from that period are quite common in the world of British philately, but common doesn't mean worthless. Condition, rarity, print variety, cancellations, watermark, and demand all influence the price. In today's market, used George V halfpennies often sell for a modest amount, maybe $10,000 to $50,000 USD for a fairly typical example. But exceptional examples, superb centering, rare shade, error varieties, could fetch significantly more. Let's pause to understand the fundamentals of stamp valuation. First, condition is king. A stamp in perfect condition, with full perforations, sharp embossing, no tears or heavy cancellations, and original gum if mint, will command far more. A stamp that is creased, trimmed, heavily canceled, or stained will drastically drop in value, even if it is rare in theory. Second, rarity and print variety matter. During the George V era, many stamps were printed in large quantities, but among them are subtle varieties, shade variations, watermark types, printing flaws or errors that collectors prize. A seemingly ordinary green halfpenny might hide a rare shade or an inverted watermark or misprint, which could push its value into double or even triple digits. Third, demand among collectors is essential. Some stamps are highly sought after due to historical significance or aesthetic appeal. Even if a stamp is rare, if very few collectors want it, price may not soar. Fourth, provenance and certification help. A stamp with a certificate from a recognized exportizing service like RPSL in the UK adds credibility and confidence for buyers, which can allow a higher price. To illustrate just how far stamp values can stretch, consider this recent headline. A rare Plate 77 penny red in the UK was put up for sale for £650,000, which in US dollars is roughly $800,000 plus, depending on currency rates. Now back to your green halfpenny. If I were to estimate, a well-centered, lightly canceled example in fine to very fine condition might fetch $40,000 to $50,000 USD in today's market. A top-quality example or rare variant might push into $50,000 to $80,000 USD or even more, assuming collector interest and a clean provenance. But ordinary copies tend to stay in the lower range. If you plan to sell, here are some tips I share with my audience. Always examine stamps under magnification. Look for watermark, plate numbers, grill marks, and shade distinctions. Document every detail. Research completed auction sales, not just listings, to see what people actually paid. Use trusted stamp market platforms or auction houses. Consider exportizing your stamp if you believe it may be of high value. Use high-quality scanning with proper lighting when taking photos to list, and be patient. Selling rare stamps often takes time. Finally, always compare with reliable catalogs like Stanley Gibbons or Scott and recent auction results in USD. Prices shift over time, and what sold for $20 last year may go higher or lower today. So, to summarize, your stamp is likely modest in value unless it has special characteristics, but even modest stamps are part of the wonderful story of postage and collecting. If you like, I can help you estimate more precisely if you send me close-up photos or watermark details or plate numbers. And in future videos, I'll delve into British stamp rarities, how to spot errors, and case studies of big sales.
Next up, the Falkland Islands Halfpenny Green stamp. This little piece of history is not just a stamp, but a story of British heritage, colonial history, and the beauty of early postal craftsmanship. The Falkland Islands, located far down in the South Atlantic Ocean, were part of the British Empire for centuries. The first postage stamps from the Falklands were issued in the late 19th century, often bearing the portrait of Queen Victoria. Each one of these stamps traveled across the world to deliver letters between sailors, settlers, and the mainland, connecting one of the most isolated communities on Earth to the wider world. The halfpenny green stamp you see before you carries that same legacy, a window into a time when every letter mattered and every stamp told a story. This particular design features the classic side portrait of Queen Victoria, surrounded by an elegant oval frame with the words Falkland Islands at the top and halfpenny at the bottom. The soft green color gives it a timeless and noble appearance, symbolizing the royal elegance that defined Victorian-era stamp design. The engraving work on this piece is beautiful, with intricate line details that bring out the depth of the Queen's profile, making it one of the most admired colonial stamps of its time. Now, let's talk about what makes this stamp so interesting to collectors today. Its value in the modern market depends on several important factors. The first is condition. A stamp that has sharp perforations, no tears or creases, rich original color, and minimal cancellation marks will always fetch a higher price. Mint condition stamps, those that have never been used and still retain their original gum, are particularly prized among collectors. If your halfpenny Falkland stamp is unused and clean, you are already looking at a valuable collectible. The second factor is rarity. Not all Falkland Islands halfpenny stamps are the same. There were different printings over the years, some with subtle color variations, watermark changes, or differences in the paper used. Some of these varieties are scarce, and when combined with excellent condition, they can become quite valuable. For example, a standard used halfpenny Falkland stamp might sell for between $10,000 and $15,000 US in today's collector market. However, a mint version in fine condition can easily rise into the range of $12,000 to $18,000. If it happens to be a rare shade or a special issue with a printing variation, that value can climb into the $20,000s of dollars, especially when accompanied by expert certification. Another key factor that affects value is demand. The Falkland Islands may be small, but their stamps have a devoted following around the world. Collectors appreciate their distinctive designs, low print numbers, and the charm of stamps from such a remote British territory. This strong international interest has helped maintain consistent market value for many classic Falklands issues. In recent years, online auctions and philatelic marketplaces have shown steady activity in Falkland Island stamps. On sites like eBay and Hipstamp, examples of the halfpenny green often sell to both beginner and experienced collectors. Prices vary, but well-preserved examples tend to attract bids quickly. For serious collectors, having a Falklands halfpenny in the album is a mark of pride, representing one of the most beloved small-issue colonies of the British Empire. The beauty of collecting stamps like this is that every single one is a story frozen in paper. Imagine the journey of one of these halfpenny stamps, printed in London more than a century ago, shipped across oceans, handled by postmasters in wooden stations surrounded by the roaring winds of the South Atlantic, and then placed on a letter that might have traveled thousands of miles back to England. Each stamp was a messenger of human connection, and today it survives as a piece of living history. If you own one of these stamps, take the time to examine it closely. Hold it under a magnifying glass, study the watermark, look at the details of the portrait, and compare the shade of green with catalog references. Check if it is mint or used, look for plate flaws or paper differences, and note any distinctive postmark that could increase its value. Even a small variation can transform a simple stamp into a prized rarity. Patience, attention, and knowledge are your greatest tools as a collector. In the world of philately, the Falkland Islands Halfpenny Green stands as a quiet but powerful reminder of the artistry and history hidden within small pieces of paper. Whether it is worth a few dollars or a few thousands, its true value lies in its story. A story that links the British royal image to one of the most distant corners of the world. That is the beauty of collecting stamps. It's not just about the price, but about preserving fragments of our shared history. So if you were just starting your collection or expanding it with classic British colonial issues, remember that every stamp has something to teach you. The Falkland Islands Halfpenny Green is a perfect example of how elegance, simplicity, and heritage come together to create something truly timeless.
Next up, the distant southern seas, to New Zealand, where this elegant one-penny stamp bearing the portrait of King George stands as a testament to the rich philatelic heritage of the British Empire's southern dominion. Born in an era when postage was a vital link across vast oceans, this New Zealand 1D King George issue carries both history and collector appeal. New Zealand stamps have long held fascination for collectors, combining beautiful engravings, varied printing issues, and occasional rarities. The King George penny stamps were issued over various years and in different printings, colors, paper types, and watermark varieties. The shade you see, leaning toward a deep red-brown, orange, or terracotta tone, suggests it might be one of the typical definitive issues of the 1920s to 1930s, though the precise year, watermark, and printing plate will determine its full identity and market value. To assess what this stamp might fetch in today's market, we must revisit the core principles of stamp valuation. First and foremost is condition. The crispness of the perforations, the centering of the design, clarity of the print, absence of creases or thinning of paper, and for mint stamps, intact or lightly disturbed gum matter enormously. A stamp in poor condition, with missing perforations, heavy cancellation, or damage, will diminish in value considerably. Next is rarity and variant. Many King George penny stamps exist, but subtle differences, a rare shade, a particular watermark orientation, an odd paper type, or a plate flaw, can elevate one example above the rest. Third is collector demand. New Zealand is a popular area for many collectors, and King George issues often feature in competitive albums. And finally, certification provenance plays a role. A verified expert opinion helps build buyer confidence and often fetches higher prices. Looking at comparable examples, many New Zealand King George penny stamps in standard used condition trade in modest ranges. For instance, listings of King George 1D used examples often show modest prices of a few US dollars on auction sites. But when stamps are mint, well-centered, and possibly of a scarce variety, the premiums rise. One particular example is the 1941 King George VI 1D green stamp, a later issue, listed as fine, lightly mounted mint for about £3, roughly $35,000 to $45,000 USD in specialist dealer listings. That gives us a frame of reference. That example is a later king, but for New Zealand 1D issues, that kind of price range for mint clean condition is common at empirephilatelist.com. Also refer to stamp catalog information. In New Zealand stamp catalogs, 1D issues of King George in ordinary condition are not usually among the rarest, unless they have a special variety or error. The value for a typical used 1D King George might lie in the range of $20,000 to $30,000 US dollars, depending on condition, centering, cancellation, and demand. If yours is mint, well-centered, and clean, and possibly with a rare variety, it could rise to $15,000, $20,000, or more, depending on the rarity and collector interest. For example, in one catalog of New Zealand 1D stamps, a 1938 King George VI 1D red is listed among common values, but special issues, such as overprints or inverted watermarks, command higher premiums. Also, a New Zealand 1D red booklet pane with inverted watermark was listed for £5,000, which is about $60,000 to $70,000 USD in one listing, showing how error varieties dramatically increase value. So for your King George New Zealand penny stamp, I would cautiously estimate If it is used in average condition, perhaps around $30,000 to $50,000 USD today. If it is mint, well-centered, clean, and possibly with a rare variety, it might command $15,000 to $20,000 or more, especially if certified. If it has a rare shade, printing error, or special provenance, the value could push higher depending on collector competition. To help you maximize value and avoid pitfalls, here are tips to examine your stamp carefully. Use a magnifier to look for the watermark orientation, upright or sideways. Inspect the perforations for completeness. Check for plate flaws or broken lines in design. Compare the shade and color under good lighting versus known examples. And research auction records for similar New Zealand King George penny stamps. If you believe you have something special or suspect an error, consider getting it expert certified by a recognized philatelic society or expertising service. High-quality scans or photos with good lighting and accurate color reproduction will also help when listing or showing the stamp to buyers. This New Zealand King George 1D stamp is a bridge between colonial heritage and modern collecting. It may or may not be a high-value gem, but even ordinary stamps carry stories. Printed in a distant land, used to convey messages across oceans, handled by many hands over decades, and now resting in your hands as a piece of living history. The joy of Philately is not only in the price, but in uncovering the story behind each stamp. Thank you for joining me today on Stamps Old World UK. If you like, I can write a full detailed video script for this exact New Zealand stamp with your close-ups, watermark results, etc. Would you like me to prepare that for your next video?